Well, you can't really call it a break, but you can call it fun. The 2025 All-Star Race in North Wilkesboro is on deck for the Cup Series this weekend, and we're about to get you ready for the short track event on Around the Track. I'm Carla Metz. He is Gabe McDowell.
Yeah, we've got NASCAR pit reporter Alan Cavanna in the house to break it all down because the rules can be a little bit confusing. Plus, we're from Spire Motorsports driver Michael McDowell, a seasoned veteran in the sport. He's going to try to race his way into the main event. We've got what you can expect from the reviewed racetrack this weekend, and we're checking on the Xfinity Series, who's enjoying another weekend off before returning to the track in Charlotte.
That's right, but first it's the main event, and that's actually not going to take place until 8 p.m. Eastern Sunday night. This is a full weekend of racing with practice and heat races Saturday, followed by the All-Star Open on Sunday ahead of the actual race. This is 3 years in a row that North Wilkesboro has hosted this event, a track that not too long ago was left for dead, but this racetrack revival has given fans an epic atmosphere where tempers, like you can see here, sometimes flare. Despite it not being a points-paying race, there's still a lot up for grabs, bragging rights, and of course a big old trophy. And oh yeah, did we mention $1 million?
Yeah, people like money, and having a shot to go for $1 million. I think it's important. Teams treat it just like every other weekend. Go try to win the race and maybe take the gloves off a little bit more than normal, which is what that race is. And I'm really excited they brought it to Wilkesboro. This will be our third year there. I thought it was really a great show.
North Wilkesboro has turned into a really, really fun racetrack too. So it races really well with the next-gen car. The progressive banking allows us to move around, run different lanes.
When you look at other sports, there's not much on the line. So they're playing around, it's relaxed, and sometimes that's fun to watch.
Right.
But for us, we have a million reasons to be pretty intense. Because, what would you do for $1 million, right? Quite a bit, right? So, for us, we are out there racing our guts out for that one.
All right, let's get you up to speed with track trends for this weekend. This is truly the one race where if you're not first, you're certainly last. Don't tell that to Joey Logano, though. He's been in the top 10 in the last 10 All-Star races, the longest streak of anyone. Kyle Larson, he's won the All-Star race 3 of the last 6 years. His 3 All-Star wins are tied for second most to Jimmy Johnson, who has 4. Toyota, you are on notice this weekend. The manufacturer is 0 for its last 7 All-Star races. And a fun stat for those who have their eyes on a bigger prize, the winner of the All-Star race has gone on to win the Cup Series championship 3 of the last 5 years, 13 times overall. So we'll see if that has anything to play into the rest of the year. Now it's time to dive into the weekend for real. And if you've watched our show, you're very familiar with this guy to our right.
And about to be even more familiar, as it was just announced that Alan Cavanna is going to be the pit reporter for the summer for the Cup Series races on TNT. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's going to be awesome summer.
I know. Yeah. So excited for all of that. Of course, let's get into this race, though. The nostalgia at this track, we know, is real, right? And they hosted various events there since 1947. We mentioned the repave that happened here last year. That's going to carry some weight in this race and how it impacts those tires, but also a change. NASCAR adding additional 50 laps to that main event, so 250 laps this weekend. How is all of this going to come into play?
Hey, look, more racing. That's all we want, right? Especially an all-star race with $1 million on the line. You factor that in with the tire that Goodyear's bringing. It's going to be a little softer tire, maybe some more wear, hopefully a little racier. And then they have this thing called a promoter's caution. If the field, let's say Kyle Larson checks out and is putting a stink on the field, they're going to throw that yellow. They're going to bunch it back up. This is a fun event for $1 million. They're going to make sure it's fun, and 50 extra laps of that, that's going to be a good deal because $1 million on the line. Look, these drivers would do it for a little plastic trophy, right? But when there's an extra $1 million, a little more incentive.
Yeah, absolutely. You're going to see a whole lot of action this weekend. And that brings us to things to keep in mind during the weekend. The All-Star Open will be a 100 qualifying lap event with 100 laps with a competition break at or near lap 40. 3 drivers will advance, the top 2 finishers, and a driver that wins the fan vote. Now, during the main event Sunday, NASCAR also implementing that promoter's caution that you mentioned. Can be thrown at any time before lap 220 and cannot be used if a naturally occurring caution happens after lap 200. Now, of course, Alan, that's a lot to digest, but as far as things to try and prepare for during the race, teams and drivers are going to be thrown a lot of different things at North Wilkesboro with how it runs.
Absolutely, and that's why we see this race usually go to the best of the best, right? This is an all-star race for a reason. The Joey Logano's of the world, 3-time champion, the Kyle Larsons of the world tend to lead a lot of laps because they have the best crews, the best people on their pit boxes who figure this stuff out. Whatever you throw at them, the best of the best tend to rise. That's why it's an all-star race. That's why you win $1 million for winning it. That's why we see the best of the best win this race.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to there. But just like last season, one big storyline of the weekend is going to be following Kyle Larson, who's going to reattempt the double. This means lots of trips back and forth from Indianapolis Motor Speedway to North Wilkesboro as they go through qualifying there for the Indy 500. That's a lot of flights, a lot of scheduling, but also a lot of fun for fans to follow, right?
100%. I was there last year when he was doing it, and we saw him fly in on the helicopter. What is the biggest cheers of the weekend is seeing him fly in from Indy. Everyone goes crazy when Kyle Larson came back, because this is why we watch sports. We watch sports to see these athletes do extraordinary things. Kyle Larson's trying to pull off the extraordinary. Race both Indy and North Wilkesboro. The next weekend, race both Indy and Charlotte. He's trying to do it all. That's what makes this so fun. And race fans love this. Whether you're an Indy fan or a NASCAR fan, everyone comes together, and everyone, even if you're not a Kyle Larson fan, you are pulling for Kyle Larson these next 2 weeks to just pull it off, because it's that cool of a deal.
Absolutely. And you just truly have to respect the greatness. Pound for pound, one of the better drivers in the entire world. And he's called Young Money for a reason. He's won the All-Star race 3 different times, every other year dating back to 2019. Now, of course, this event does not count for points in the postseason, but you do win $1 million. We can't say it enough, folks. A pretty good amount of pocket change. And Alan, what can that do for a driver and their team going forward when they get it done?
Why not? It weighs your pockets down. I can tell you it probably does that.
Around a little different.
And you never know. Look, this money goes to the team technically, but I would think for the driver and their contracts, you get a little bonus money, maybe more than maybe a normal week. But when you have $1 million and just be able to say that pride, have that victory, these are career stats, right? When you look back on Hall of Fame careers, you rack up the championships, the Daytona 500s, the All-Star wins, the $1 million checks you get. This is what drivers go for. They want that piece of history, and certainly the All-Star race, getting that on your resume as many times as possible is what you want.
And not only that, but we've got the Pit Crew Challenge. So the best pit crew gets an award for this, a big trophy, and then also the top manufacturer gets a prize this weekend as well.
Yeah, everything on the line. That's why it's fun to celebrate all this at such a historic venue like North Wilkesboro. Everyone gets a little piece to celebrate, and that's what the fun of the weekend is.
It is really a lot of fun. Well, Alan's going to stick around for the whole show, but speaking of the $1 million, we're going to hear from one of the drivers that will try to race his way into the main event to compete for those big bucks.
$1 million is still a lot of money. It doesn't matter where you drive or who you drive for. It's a lot on the line.
Daytona 500 winner, but he'd sure like to add All-Star champion to his resume this weekend at North Wilkesboro. We sat down with Michael McDowell to talk about his new team and much more on Garage Confidential.
And the Xfinity Series is on break, but believe it or not, one of the series drivers gets to buckle up for the $1 million opportunity this weekend. How did Harrison Burton steal a spot into the main event? We'll explain coming up. Plus, NASCAR just handed out one hefty penalty that has one Cup driver now out of the playoff standings.
At least for now. We're going to tell you who it is when we come back here on Around the Track. NASCAR isn't messing around with the penalties as of late. Chris Buescher, the latest driver to get cracked down on by the sport. The 17 team has been penalized for an L1 penalty following the race at Kansas Speedway. NASCAR says the team went over the maximum reinforcement allowed on the front bumper covers. Buescher has been docked a whopping 60 championship points, 5 playoff points, and fined $75,000 as crew chief Scott Graves also suspended for 2 races. This drops the number 17 from 12th in the playoff standings to 24th.
And Xfinity Series driver Harrison Burton is getting another chance behind the wheel of a Cup car this weekend. Burton won the Fall Daytona race in August last season, which qualifies him for the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro this weekend. Now, obviously, he won't be in the 21 Wood Brothers car he won with last season. Instead, he will pilot the number 51 for Rick Ware Racing. Burton currently drives the number 25 full-time in the Xfinity Series for AM Racing. Back here, Burton's win qualifies him for the main event, but that brings up a bigger question. What are the other qualifiers to get in the final race on Sunday night? Well, here you go. It's anyone who clinched victories in Cup Series points races in the current or preceding seasons, any previous All-Star winners that compete full-time, and any former Cup champion that races full-time as well. Back here with Alan Cavana. So that covers 20 drivers that are already locked into the main event Sunday night. But those that have to qualify their way in, who do you think has the best shot to make it in on Sunday night?
There's some big names out there. We got Bubba Wallace, Ty Gibbs, Carson Hocevar, young driver, showing a lot of speed. If you're giving me those 3, I got to give it to Bubba. I mean, the Toyota speed, the 2311 speed. But that field, the open field, is really fun. There's going to be some good cars, good racing in there. And again, it's win and in. You win the race, you get to race in the All-Star race. So it's a fun event.
Absolutely. Like a football team fighting for that 6th win to get to a bowl or get to the playoffs as well. So going to be a lot of fun racing there to see who gets their way into the All-Star race. And one guy who's looking to do that sat down with our own Carla Metz this week. Carla, you have more on him.
That's right. Michael McDowell, who spent the last 6 seasons with Front Row Motorsports, but now has decided to make a change and join Spire in the offseason. It brought a lot of change for the former Daytona 500 winner, which was covered in this week's Garage Confidential. All right, so I don't think we've talked to you since about this time last year, but obviously you're on a new team with Spire Motorsports this season. So how are things going, and how would you kind of, summarize your season so far here?
Yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's been a transition, no doubt, when you are switching teams and meeting new people, new processes. But I'm really happy with where we're at as far as a group. I feel like our race cars have good speed, and we're starting to see that on the racetrack. And we knew it was going to take time. Racers want it faster than where we're at right now, but I feel like we're in a good spot, knowing what we have to do and having the ability to go up there and qualify in the top 5, get a pole, and have some speed. Now we just have to execute.
And now we've got the All-Star break. We say break, but it's not really one, right?
It's not a break, no.
It's not a break at all, but you're going to go up to North Wilkesboro, try to race your way into the main event. How do you feel about the All-Star race and how it's kind of come along over the past couple of years?
It's always fun. I always feel like the rules are changing, the format is changing. It always kind of mixes it up, but it's one of those weekends where it's going to be different than your every Sunday routine. There's going to be variables that you don't typically have to account for, but that always creates opportunity too. And so I'm excited to get to North Wilkesboro. I enjoy the qualifying with the pit stop just because it gets everybody engaged in that process, for that starting lineup. So it's a fun weekend. I really do enjoy it. Not that there isn't any pressure. We all want to win, and it's $1 million on the line, so you want to win. But at the same time, it allows you to kind of let loose and not worry about points and not worry about mistakes. You just go out there and go hammer down and see what happens. Second
year of the repave. Some people are saying there's going to be some wear, obviously a little bit, but do you think there's going to be that much of a significant difference there?
It's so hard to tell because in the old days, like repaves would take so long before you would start seeing the track age and change colors and start to wear tires. You guys remember old Kansas and Michigan, it took forever. But the way that they've been doing it lately, it seems like that's quicker. And so I'm not sure. I know with the soft tires that we've been running, the Goodyear soft tires, there's probably still going to be some wear. But, who knows? We don't know exactly what that surface is going to be like. I don't think it'll be terribly different than last year, though.
You mentioned the $1 million. What could that do for a driver that wins and for a team, depending on how you end up splitting that up?
Well, I mean, $1 million is still a lot of money. It doesn't matter where you drive or who you drive for. It's a lot on the line. And so, it's cool to even, talk about having the opportunity to race for that. But we got to get into that position. We got to get into the big race first. So, but like you said, it definitely helps with everything that we're trying to do and develop. And it's good for your partners and, momentum. It doesn't matter what race you win, whether it's Bowman Gray, the Clash, or the All-Star race. The money does help. I mean, it is important. But just that confidence and that momentum, goes throughout the season.
And the momentum's important as we get into the summer stretch. We've got Charlotte coming up and then all of these summer races to different racetracks. But I do want to address the paint scheme that we have behind us right here. What can you tell us about this and just the patriotism of the 71?
Delaware Life did a great job with this paint scheme and, representing the veterans out there on a very special weekend. To me, it's just one of these weekends where when you have families at the racetrack and you have fallen soldiers' families at the racetrack, it's just a great reminder of what we get to do is awesome and it is special and freedom is not free. And so, to have this patriotic paint scheme out on the racetrack is going to be a lot of fun. I'm really appreciative to everyone at Delaware Life for letting us have this opportunity.
Appreciate Spire and Michael McDowell for that interview. Well, while the Cup and Truck Series are out on the track this weekend, the Xfinity Series is still on break. You can hear how one driver wants to break a record that he'd rather not hold. That's coming up.
And Ryan Blaney has many hobbies: racing, Star Wars, good bourbon, and now pickleball. Well, turns out he's got some big name friends who are in on the sport as well. We'll show you when Around the Track continues.
Another reminder, the Xfinity Series is off for the second week in a row. You're looking at the current standings. Justin Allgaier and Austin Hill lead the way at 1 and 2, followed by Sam Mayer, Jesse Love, and Brandon Jones. Carson Quapple still leading all rookies this season. He's 6th, followed by Jeb Burton, Ryan Sieg, Sammy Smith, and Harrison Burton. The only other driver with a win outside the top 10, that's Connor Zilich, who's currently in 12th. And that brings up Sheldon Creed, who's currently 11th in the point standings. The 27-year-old is enjoying his new team at Haas Factory, but is still looking for for his first win in the series. Just how close has he been before? Well, he currently holds the record for most runner-up finishes in the series without a win. He owns 14 of those. It's a storyline that continues to follow him. But from his perspective, he says he's been able to learn from all of them, and there's a silver lining to all of it.
There's been days where probably should have won and finished second and third, and there's days that I should have finished eighth and finished second. So there's some winners and losers in there. But yeah, I would say definitely the losers are tougher when you do have the car to win and you're in position, and yeah, just don't play a restart or it just doesn't go your way at the end. Those are tough ones to swallow, and had a lot of them. I think I've got 14 second place finishes now in 3 or 4 years. So yeah, those are frustrating. But then again, I could run 15th every week.
So these are one of the storylines that you kind of, I don't know, dread to bring up to a driver, right? Because it's something that I'm sure he thinks about all the time. But do you think he actually gets over the hurdle this season?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would like his team to be running a little better. I mean, they're kind of a new team this year, expanding to 2, but he's so good. He's a truck champion. He's a truck winner. He's finished so well so many times that I wouldn't be surprised at all if to get that victory. It's just that this narrative, every time we have to ask him about it, it must just cut just a little bit. But look, if we're talking about him finishing second, that means he's running up front. He's run with good teams. He's got good equipment. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. Poor kid.
Real quick, when you think about this 3-week break, who do you think needed this break the most to kind of have a reset for the back half of the season?
I hate to say Connor Zilic, only because of his injury, right? I mean, he had such a tough injury and what he had to go through at Talladega and at that track. Hopefully he's healed. Hopefully he comes back, because we know so much talent on that side of the car.
Certainly look forward to seeing the Xfinity Series return to the track at Charlotte. You can see it, of course, on the CW. Well, NASCAR and pickleball collide once again. Team Penske's Ryan Blaney hosted Pickle for a Purpose earlier this week in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's an annual event for the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation, which supports those with Alzheimer's and raises awareness for brain health. On top of the pickleball tournaments, there was a silent auction, and you even had fellow Ford drivers Brad Keselowski and Corey LaJoie on hand to show off their pickleball skills as well. Truly a great night earlier this week for a great cause, and the man behind it all is hoping for some great on-track results here in the near future.
We have a little bit more DNFs than I'd like to have, just blown motors and getting in a couple wrecks, but I still think we've been really strong when we have been able to put races together, and we're being 5th in points with the year we've had with the DNFs. That's just a big testament to the speed we got. So I'm looking forward to the rest of the year, and looking forward to getting back to Charlotte, a place where we won the 600 a couple years ago. We got to go try to win $1 million first.
And as for the on-court results, Blaney's squad would fall to Corey LaJoie and Skip Flores. And for the record, myself and our EP Christian Audi hold pickleball wins over Daniel Suarez. If anyone wants to play us, we are certainly down, and we can set that up here pretty soon.
Oh, you had to throw in that bragging right, right? Yeah. Kyle Larson burned it down after a dominant performance in Kansas. Can he do it again for $1 million? We'll tell you what Sportsbooks thinks and give you our picks when Around the Track continues. We'll be right back. Next week, we go from All-Star to Crown Jewel. We're headed to NASCAR's home, Charlotte, North Carolina, where it's time for the Sports Endurance Test, the Coca-Cola 600. And Bubba Wallace loved being here so much last time. He's back on Garage Confidential. So who wins NASCAR's second major of the year? We'll break it down next week on Around the Track. Check your local listings on when you can see ATT on your local Nexstar station.
And you get not one but 2 odds boards this week, because we got to race the All-Star Open before we get to the main event Sunday night. JGR's Ty Gibbs is an overwhelming favorite here. He's at plus 170. Bubba Wallace, who we just mentioned, he's right behind him at 3-1 with Ryan Preece, and the very fast Carson Hocevar in that 77 car at 6-1. One of those guys survived to open and advance to the main event. If so, it's Kyle Larson, who's leading the sportsbook darling, as he's been all season, 5-1 to get that $1 million prize yet again. The others aren't far behind him, though. You got Ryan Blaney, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell, all with 6-1 odds to get it done. William Byron and last year's winner Joey Logano, both 8-1. And just for the degenerates out there, if you want to bet on Harrison Burton, he's at 250-1 if you want to get a big payday similar to what he could get if he wins it.
Hey, it could happen.
It could.
All right, time now for our victory lane locks. I don't get it right much, but I got to gloat a little bit and say that I got last week's pick right, picking Kyle Larson. Alan Cavana. I know. Just congratulate me.
Yeah,
all right, Alex Cavana, yes, give us your pick this week.
Well, I'm taking the same strategy. I'm going to pick Kyle Larson, and then I'm going to brag about it when he wins $1 million, because why not? I mean, he's Kyle Larson, one of the best drivers in the world. He won't get all the practice time, remember. He's going to be in Indy doing his thing, so it's going to be even a bigger hill to climb. Doesn't matter. He's going to come down there and do it again. I'm taking the Carlo approach. Take Kyle Larson.
Certainly one of
smart.
the best. And I think it's time for his teammate to finally have some good luck in this race. Give me William Byron to get it done and have some good fortune. Currently second in points and laps led, right behind his teammate Kyle Larson. He hasn't fared well the last 2 years in North Wilkesboro. 19th and 20th place finishes. This race, of course, has been dominated by one driver. I think it's time for the 24 car to dominate and head to victory lane in North Wilkesboro.
All right, I'm going quick here. I'm going Denny Hamlin, always competitive at these things. Finished second last season behind Logano. He's won it here before. So, yeah, give me Denny Hamlin. And the number 11. That's going to do it for us this week. We'll see you next week ahead of the Coke 600.